welcome to the channel. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Now today's a bit of a different video. If you don't know, I did put out a community post, a question and answer session. Now a few people did get back to me, and what I'd like to do going forward is try and engage you, the subscriber, a lot more through my community posts. I know I don't do enough at the moment. So if you guys like this video, you like what you're going to hear today with the question and answer session, and if you want me to do it more frequently, let me know in the comment section below, and also suggest a frequency. Do you want me to do it monthly, every 2 months or 3 months, something like that? So I have for you guys a total of 5 questions. One of the questions, there's like 3 mini questions in there, and very good questions, you know, very thought-provoking questions. I did have to think and write down, and you know, get a good answer for you guys, based on my opinion, of course. So without further ado, let's go ahead. I want to keep this video kind of short as well, so you guys can obviously pay attention to it. So the first question was by Kieran Payne. Now Kieran asks, what would you consider the best all-round watch of 2020? So Kieran, you know what, it's a lot to think about. So I think the first thing on that side, I'm only going to look at watches from AliExpress, and watches that possibly stood out to me through 2020 on a personal level. And I think the first one would have to be the Proxima Marine Master 300. One, I think it's because the watch that it is homaging, the Marine Master by Seiko. Now that's about what, £3,000 to £4,000 watch, depending on what type, and you know, if it's a special edition or limited edition. But more so, I think they've captured the build quality, the materials, the finishing really well, and that is one watch that has really impressed me, and it is by far one of my favorite watches in my current collection. And you know, it gives my Seikos a good run for the money as well. The second one I'd say would have to be the Heimdallr Monster homage. So for that, I think with the monsters, especially what they hold to the Seiko community, they're going up to £600-800, ridiculous prices. The limited editions are in the thousands. So I'd say, I think with the Heimdallr they came out with, the monster, they done exceptionally well. They did smash it at the park. From every aspect was captured. You know, a lot of these homage brands, we miss things, so i.e. the bezel might not be good, or the bracelet might be lacking. But with Heimdallr, they've done everything from the design. Very good research and development went into that. The finishing was immaculate. You know, when I did that comparison, amazing. Really well built, and it is something that you can wear and not feel that it's a cheap Chinese watch, if that makes sense. And the best thing was the price. You know, amazing value for money. And I'm going to mention a third one here, is Pagani design. You know, for a long time I do actually hold that Pagani design are probably the best all-round watch from AliExpress, coming, or from China. In fact, you know, they give you everything. They're fully specced out with ceramic, sapphire, NH35, stainless steel. You know, they've got a full package. You know, they've got branding, consistent branding. A big thing for me across all these brands is standardization. You know, they don't give us standardized elements. You know, sometimes they have a sign crown, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the logo's like this, sometimes they change the name willy-nilly. So I think with Pagani, more so the 40mm case, I like that more than the 43mm. I'm talking about the Submariner homage, of course. If you just to go onto AliExpress and look at the orders, you know, 4,000 plus, say no more, right? And that's an objective one, but you know, the numbers at the end of the day do speak for themselves. So I hope that answers your question. Question 2, Craig Rogers. Now Craig, you've been a bit cheeky. You've given me 3 questions here in one, but I'll try my best to answer them. So the first part, the question is, if I can review any watch, money no object, which one would it be? But the thing here is, I can't keep it. I don't know, I've never considered anything like that. But you know, I always like to stay in my lane. So, but having said that, if I could get anything, I'd get it, the Rolex Daytona. I really like that. That's one watch from the Rolex group where I just think, wow. I mean, I haven't really thought about it, so I think if I looked at the lineup and I looked at my watches, I might change my answer. But just top of my head, I'd say definitely that. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous looking watch. So that's that. What is my ultimate grail watch? Again, I never ever thought about a grail watch, but one did pop into my head. I saw this watch a while ago while I was just sharing pictures with a friend of mine. The Grand Seiko 20th anniversary limited edition SBGA 403 spring drive. Considering everything, it's around 10k, which isn't too bad. But I just love how that looks. It's that, you know, they've got this lion mane edition going on with the dials. Seiko do produce some of the best dials, even on their, you know, entry level divers. Look at like Save the Ocean, etc. And you know, the King series that they're doing, like the King Turtle and the King Samurai. Amazing dials. But this watch, I love the case shape, I love the finishing, you know, that Zaratsu polishing, the spring drive mechanism. That by far is one of my most favorite movements. I just love that super perfect sweep on that watch. And the third part to your question was, is the micro brand market overcrowded, and you know, can we expect anything else from 2021? I don't think it's overcrowded at all, Craig. I mean, I'm just sort of breaching that micro brand side of watches myself. Technically, I don't consider the AliExpress stuff Chinese watches micro brands, although if we put the technicalities aside, yes, some of them do fall into the category of a micro brand. And you know, for the most part, I would say they are. But it's just on literally just the way you define that they don't come under it. However, to get back to what you asked, yeah, definitely, I think it's not overcrowded at all. I think there's so much that people can do, and that is where we see alternative original designs more so than the AliExpress. I mean, watches, even micro brands, like a lot of people like to knock the AliExpress stuff, the Chinese stuff, because it's just replica, copy. Yes, but look at all the micro brands beforehand. Tissel, you know, you look at Steinhardt as well. What are they copying? So that being said, I think there is a lot of potential. I'll mention three that, like I said, I've only just started breaching this micro brand world, but I'll mention Zelos watches as one. Definitely a massive contender. There's another personal favorite of mine. The company's called Nodus. They're based in the USA, and the particular model which I really like is Nodus Avalon. The price point's great. What they give, if you look at the website and you look at the close-up pictures of the watches, they look stunning. They absolutely look stunning. The finishing is of such a higher quality than what they're actually charging for it. And the last one is a new one to me, Rec Watches. Now, I've seen them post on Instagram. I'll put up a picture, and what they've done basically, they've joined, you know, the two greatest loves that a man can probably have, right, aside from family, is cars and watches. So they've got this, they've got the old Mustangs, they've cut out parts of the body, and they've made dials out of it, and they've styled the watch, you know, around a iconic car, such an iconic car like the Mustang. So if you were growing up and you watched Gone in 60 Seconds, you'll know Eleanor, that Mustang. And the watch in particular, this one that I'm showing you, you know, they've took a piece of metal out of it, and you know, that kind of Mustang, and they've made this amazing dial. So it's only micro brands that are bringing us these kind of things. So yeah, definitely I think they can do so much more, and it's definitely not overcrowded. You know, the more the merrier. And I think I'd like to see what 2021 brings from the micro brands. Now this one is from Alexandros. Alexandros asks, which is the most value for money Chinese brand in your opinion? He thinks the answer will be SteelDive, but he's leaning more towards Heimdallr. You know what? Let me. This is going to be a bit of a long answer, right? Because I've been thinking about this. I wanted to do a video, maybe two, going through the four main, you know, Chinese brands that I sort of cover. So SteelDive, Heimdallr, Proxima, San Martin, and I wanted to point out the good and the bad in all four of them. Between the four, I don't think there's any one brand that brings us everything consistently. And what I mean by everything, I look at the full package. So if it's a dive watch, it needs to have a good bezel, good bracelet, good finishing on the case, you know, good quality of dials and hands. Now, when I look at a watch, because I've started taking all these AliExpress watches apart as well, there's a few videos on my channel just for the modders, I get to see the internals, and then that really helps me differentiate and look at things which you guys might not see. So when I'm talking, doing my reviews, there's certain things I might point to which I know for a fact are really, really good and worth mentioning, and which might make one watch better than the other. So let me summarize what I think. To answer your question, short and sweet, the most value for money Chinese brand, Pagani design, as I mentioned in the previous question. For under £80, you get full specs, you get Japanese auto movements, you get a very iconic designs that they're homaging, predominantly from Rolex, of course, and I think they give you everything, like I said before. So let's start there. But if we want to look at, because you mentioned SteelDive and Heimdallr, SteelDive are overall good value. The thing with SteelDive is, I mean, they do decent dial in hands. They do decent functionality. The bezels, for the most part, are so-so. They're okay. Some models are good. Some models are really bad. But they've got loads of QC issues. So, they're selling the watches a little bit too cheap. They've got literally zero bracelet game. So they're giving those cheapo straps. They've made watches like the Sumo Homage, which, if they just had done a bracelet on it, that would have been the best Sumo Homage on the market. I really do love that case. On the new models, they've just totally stopped doing bracelets because they know the stuff sells, it's cheap, so they don't need to spend extra money on that side. But then the QC issues are ample, loads of QC issues. I've had my fair share, I've stocked loads of SteelDive watches. Next one, let's talk about Heimdallr. Heimdallr have much better hands that they use, and they use much better dials. That's one thing the Heimdallrs have. When I've talked about Heimdallr watches, I've compared the parts. The handsets are really, really well finished. The dials, the sunburst dials and the sunray dials that they do, very, very nice, clear, crisp printing, everything, right? Good cases. Again, the bezels are, so and so. Some watches are good, some are just absolutely rubbish. They do have more bracelets options. The bracelets are okay, they're not the best, but they sit at a very good quality. I'd say around a 6 or 7 out of 10. But the thing with Heimdallr, again, they've got QC issues very similar to that of SteelDive. And the thing with Heimdallr as well, they do a good price, and they've got a good variety as well. Same with SteelDive, decent variety in the different types of watches they have. Proxima, you know what? So that's a step up for me. So very, very good looking watches. The build quality is amazing. The internals, the little things they do, like the MM300 they have, where when you take it apart, you've got a little extension for the stem to take out. The way the bezels rotation is fantastic, and I've had a few Proximas now, and the quality has been consistent with no QC issues so far. But the problem there now with the Proxima is they just do too many dial and bezel variants, where I think they're just spending money or wasting it in the wrong direction. Ultimately on a watch, okay, give us a maximum of 4 bezel insert options, right? Give us a maximum of, I don't know, 2 or 3 different dial types. But if you look at the store now, you've got a handful of models, the same models, mainly the Proxima MM300 and the Tuna. You've got like 30 dial versions. So how do you choose? But once you do that now, you're taking it from your main product, and then you're just watering it down. That's their problem, right? San Martin. So a lot of people would put them at the top, the creme de la creme, if you will. I beg to differ on a few of the models, but I do like how, for example, the Sin Homage they did, something which nobody has done, and they give a much more refined version of these watches. So the quality is a lot better. They do a better package, better bracelet. As you know, the bezel rotations is okay, right? Some watches really good, and some watches not so good. It's not something they expect from them, but they give us consistent quality, and I think out of all of them, even though they all have done improved versions of their watches, I think San Martin are the most consistent in listening to feedback and then responding with the version 2, version 3, to really give the customers what they want. So that's my overview of those 4 brands so far. And for 2021, I think they will be doing some good things, because looking back where they started, they've all have shown improvement. So let's see where 2021 takes. Okay, the last question. Actually, not the last one, second to last. So this is Ferry Symbolon. Sorry, mate. I hope I said your name right. Question is now, it seems like all watches now have sapphire glass, Japanese auto, solid links, etc., etc. So how would you consider one better than the other? Would it be design, dial layout, the quality of finishing, more detailed technical specification, etc.? It's a very good question, Ferry. Now, it depends how long you've been following my channel. I remember I got to a point, I'd say through midway through the year, where I didn't even want to speak about the specifications when I was doing my reviews. I just wanted to say, here's the watch, and let me talk about it, because the specs were exactly the same in everything. And that's why I'm going back to my point that, when it comes to Pagani design, they'll give you everything for around £60. It's only for design that you pay any more for anything else. So, I mean, the four categories you're giving me, like design, dial layout, quality of finishing, I think it's a little bit between all of that. So, a little bit of everything. And I think what I'm looking for is when I get a watch in and I've already had something similar, or, between the 4 or 5 homage brands, they all copy, or homage, sorry, similar watches, right? And the first thing I look at is what does differentiate between them is the quality of the finishing, the value add stuff, like I call it. And that is why I started doing my critical comparisons, where I break down the watch feature by feature. This style uses applied indices. This style, these indices are polished. This has got a date frame. This style hasn't. So you really have to look into the detail to find the difference, and then to overall decide what's better than the other. And then put it like respectively or relatively to what the watch costs, if that makes sense. So a bit of everything. Like I said, design and the dial layout is very important. The way the case has been finished, where is it brushed, where is it polished, the nailing on the crown. It's all these little things which, going back to value add, will tell you that, okay, now this person who's commissioned this watch to be made, because that's all they are. Usually with all these brands, there's one main guy, he's got a little team around him, and he's the boss. So he might have a factory, or he might have access to a factory, right? So they'll use a factory for dials, they'll use a factory for cases, crowns, etc. Now it's up to them what they pay the factory for, right? You can have two exactly the same cases come from the same place, but with China, if you pay $2 more, you'll get better polishing, right? So if you pay another $10, they'll do something else. So that's how it works, and that is what I look at between, watches that, okay, they've done this, they've done that, and that's how I determine which one is better, in my opinion. But then I'll try to keep it objective with actual physical value added stuff that I can see. Originality doesn't really come into it. And then there's another thing as well, which I've started to look at, is I use the word enthusiastic, or enthusiasm, behind certain features on watches. Now that's because some watches, not all of them are spec monsters or the chasing specifications. Now, I think the first one that I saw possibly was the rectangular Redune homage. They opted for an aluminium bezel insert over a ceramic. Now, why would you do that when cost wise there's probably not much difference in there? Ceramic bezel inserts are relatively cheap, but the fact that they went for an aluminium one to give that more of a retro look, that's what I like. I mean, you might have watches that come out with acrylic crystals. Now, on the spec side of it, on paper, you think, why are you going for acrylic and you've gone for domed? Sorry, and you've got sapphire available. Well, it's there to create a certain look of a certain time period. So if you look at 54 watch, for example, as well, the fact that they came out with, again, an aluminium bezel insert, and the watch didn't look fully refined and modernized like we'll see on the San Martin, for example. I like that about it, because they're trying to homage it in a truer sense, or on a more enthusiastic level. And that's what I mean when I throw that word around, is because they had a choice and they went for something different. Also, I'd look at like the type of crystal used. Does it fit? Is it too big? And try to understand the thought behind it. Now, although these guys that have made the watches probably don't even look at it like that, and half the time it's probably just been a happy accident where they've put something together and thought, yeah, that looks nice. But still, from my point of view, you can see these little touches to certain features on watches, which then for me tells me, you know what, that's better because of X, Y, and Z. So I hope that answers your question there, Ferry. Okay, we're down to the last question by Ross Kirby. Now, Ross asks, given their production quality and experience, shouldn't the likes of San Martin, Heimdallr, SteelDive, etc. start to produce original designs rather than homages? If so, what do you think these watches would look like and what would the price point be? To answer your question, I mean, simply, yes, of course, Ross, they definitely have got the capability. And this is something I've been thinking when we look at all the range of watches that I've been reviewing on this channel. You know, people call them Seiko killers, etc. And if there were original watches, they would stand, they'll put a dent in the market, definitely. They stand their ground against a lot of good micro brands and a lot of high street brands. By all, you know, of course they will. But the problem is, it's not so much the product, it's the people making it. Now, it's that mentality that we have. So the Chinese production mentality, the manufacturing mentality has always been, you know, low cost, high volume, right, and just sell the life out of it. And this is what we get. You know, they look at the short gains, so they don't ever look at the long game. They always want to move stuff quickly. So that's why it's for them. Is they think smart, right? Why are you gonna spend money trying to find an original watch or design that may sell, may not sell? Now, yes, in the West we have a negative opinion. Oh, it's China made, it must be crap. That's not true. Most of the stuff you have is made in China. But again, it goes back to the previous question where it depends what the person who's commissioned that to be made pays for. China will give you grade A, B, C, and D. If you pay for D, you're going to get D. But if you put some more money in, right, that's where you get something a lot better, because they are perfectly capable of creating one of the best, some of the best quality pieces, right? You know, and it's well known as well. Brands like Rolex, brands like even micro brands like CW or whoever, they will source certain elements and parts from China, but they're paying them that premium to make something a lot better than they're doing in these homages. So one is that cultural mentality behind them. You know, let's just sell it, let's copy a Rolex, make it a homage, and look, we've sold 4,000 watches. Now, will they sell 4,000 watches if it was an original design? I doubt it very much. And that's the thing, but they can flip that, right? If what they can do now, because they've established themselves now, so now because we've seen San Martin, we've seen Heimdallr, we've seen so and so, if they were to now produce an original design, they've got a better chance of selling, because they've now been here for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, and they've built that reputation that, look, we can make good watches, we've copied the life out of everything. Now, what do you think they look like? Couldn't say, honestly. Even if you look at, you know, all the watches that are out there, in terms of looks, they all borrow things from everyone else. You know, ultimately, I don't want to see something which out of the ordinary, because that's a massive turn off as well, because watches do have a standard, again, you know, with the dial design, etc. So you want it to, of course, look like a normal watch. A small amount of homage is not bad, but looks wise, it's anybody's guess, mate, I think. But when it comes to price point now, they can smash it. If you look at what they're giving us, so if you look at the 100 to £200 category retail, yeah, I can tell you now, if they're selling for 120, that watch has not cost them more than £40. Yeah, even less than that. Because how do you explain Pagani design coming out with £60 sub homages? Yeah. But if you look at around the 150 to £200 or even 250 category, yeah, that watch has not cost them more than, let's just say it's cost them under £100. Look at what you're getting. Let's look at, for example, the Proxima, the bronze samurai homage that I looked at. You've got a sapphire bezel insert. Let's just look at it, you know, with objectively. Sapphire bezel insert, double dome crystal, bronze case, NH35. You know, they've done that funky dial, right? So then they had to fork out probably a bit more money to get something which isn't already out there, and get something specifically made for themselves and modding the movement. And they're selling that for around 230, 240, whatever. So it still stands that watch hasn't cost them anywhere near that. Imagine they spent £200 cost price. They could easily take out a lot of watches up to the £1,000 mark. Definitely, you know, they've got the capability. But already, for example, St. Martin has started bringing out the Rolex GMT Homage. You know, they want something like 280 for it UK pounds. Yeah, people are hesitant. You're like, that's a lot of money now. You're going into the 340 category, where you can get a used Swiss made watch from there. You know, and that's where slowly they can probably push it there, but then it's got to be different. Because if you're going to pay £300 for a St. Martin version of a Rolex Homage, then you could easily spend £200 or £250 and just get a super clone grade Rolex from China, which is better value for money in my opinion, because that has been cloned, you know, from the brushing to every little feature that's been cloned, and that fools like experts. So on the build quality side of things, that's a lot better, and it's a lot cheaper than what St. Martin have done, for example. So, but going back to your question, I think under £500 definitely, you'd be expecting to pay around less than 300, in fact, and you'll get really good quality watches. And like I said, to be honest, between the £100 and £200 category from AliExpress, the watches are exceptional. You're getting everything you could ask, really. You know, the PT 5000 movements are coming out around the £150 mark. We've seen Chronos Bringers a PT 5000 with ceramic, sapphire, all that. We've got the Miyota 9015 movement out there now, so they can do a lot. And I think, yeah, that's all I have to say on that. So hopefully that answered your question, and everybody watching, hopefully this clarified some things. And let me know if you find this interesting. Do you want me to do another Q&A session? Just recommend a frequency that you'd like this done. Just keep an eye out on the community post side of things. I'll be uploading some more stuff and just trying to gauge, get more involvement from the subscribers, because looking at the question sets now, you know, I've got some really like intriguing subscribers that have got some really thought-provoking questions here, and I like to, you know, get involved in the conversations and, you know, put my input in there, because I think the good thing with the reviewer is we just have our hands like elbows deep in watches. So just the fact that if you handle 100-200 watches, you do pick up a lot of experience out of that, and you can really shed some light on some questions or what people are asking. So that's me done for the question and answer session. Hope you guys liked it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will see you hopefully on the next video, which should be a review. Thank you everyone once again, and I'll see you next time.